Speaking of my very recent video about the new JSNP 4 loans, deadbeat loans, the new Fannie Mae loan that's coming out that gives bad credit, deadbeat, you name it, people, the ability to go get a mortgage again to go buy too high of a priced house. This goes kind of hand in hand with that, actually. The number of young adults living at home continues to hover near record levels. Just last month, we found out that a record number of millennial women are living at home with their parents. This dates back to when modern day record keeping began in 1940. Millennial men are tracking with this thread as well, but are just a few points off the record set 75 years ago. In other words, young Americans are having a tough time forming households. And this isn't a shock for Los Angeles, where renter households spend nearly half of their income on housing payments and make up a majority of households. Those that buy inflated $700,000 crap shacks in many cases are spending 40% or more of their income on housing payments. In reality, what is happening is that many young Americans are too broke to even set out to find a rental, let alone purchase a home. This is why the home ownership rate is reaching generational lows, all the while investors are pushing up prices in markets with low inventory. Local families and young buyers are being priced out. So, according to Bloomberg, some 36+% of women between the ages of 18 and 34 lived with their parents or relatives, family, etc. in the year 2014, which, by the way, is the highest since the records began in 1940. Keeping in mind what was 1940 prior to that, the 30s. Oh, the Great Depression. So you would expect those numbers to be high, which is why it makes sense that when they started record keeping in 1940, they started up here and went down. Um, while the share of young men was even greater at 42.8%, it wasn't quite as high as it was some 75 years ago. So it shows, we'll show you this little chart. The percentage of 18 to 34-year-olds living with their parents is still climbing. When did the housing market peak? 2005, 2006. We had the crash, we had all the problems, right? Then plenty of people got foreclosed, couldn't go and get a house right away, right? So we became renters. Lots of people became renters. You've got this thing going straight up here till 2013, middle of 2012. Comes down to just a hair and then starts to the inclination again in 2015. Um, so this is interesting because this is 18 to 34-year-olds living with their parents. I'm going to quickly search master Google for chart parents living with their children. Kind of do that backwards, if you know what I mean. Let's see if this shows it. That's the living with parents. We want parents living with their children. That's what I want. This is from 2010. Huffington Post. Is there a chart? Percent of 34-year-old, 25 to 34-year-olds living with parents versus home ownership. I guess it doesn't. I guess they don't really count who actually owns the house. Is it the parent moving back in with the kid, or just the kids moving with parents? I guess they don't. It doesn't matter. Just the fact of the matter that the the family is back together again. So I'm not going to waste your time trying to search for more of that. Um, so that's a chart. Not looking good. Then we have this chart, which goes back to what looks like, gosh, I don't know, 1960. And you can see this little trend. Interestingly enough, remember 1980, gold peak, silver peak, high interest rates came after that, market problems, 1987 crash. But you can see from 1980 to 85, home ownership rate plummeted. Why? We had a Economic crisis in 1980, the gold and silver thing happened. They had to raise the interest rates, right? Homeownership values plummeted. They petered off. 1995 Bill Clinton timeframe starts to jump pretty drastically if if we all don't mind saying so ourselves. Look at that. All the way up. So 95 all the way up to 2005. So we had the Democrat, Bill Clinton, the Republican, George Bush, twice, 2 terms, and going over to 2010 even, right? Well, we got 5, so 6, 7, 8. Obama steps into office in 09, January, right? And it had already started declining, right? Home ownership rate had already started its huge decline. So it doesn't matter who the president is, a Republican, Democrat, Bush, Obama, none of that matters. They just get looked at as, hey, you were in charge when all this went down. And having said that, a lot of times their policies and the stuff that they sign into law is actually directly responsible for these things. But if Bill Clinton started this and deregulation and Glass-Steagall and all that gets taken out, and then all of a sudden we have these, oh, everybody's approved home loans, everyone, we want home ownership for everybody. Look at what happens. And then look at 2015 where this thing goes way down, boop. Starts at the very end to just do a little dip up and that's it. But this is, I mean, from 2005 to 2015, let's look at the numbers. That's 10 years, okay? So we peak in 2005 at 69%, drops down to 3.5%. But just looking at the chart, the angle that it drops, right? What's 1960 to 2005, right? 1960, 70, 80, 90, 2000, 2005, 45 years. Look at the little gradual blips and whatnot. Sure, we see the one in 1980. That was a nice little downtrend, but it was very short-lived, right? We've got this one going on for 10 years now. 1980 was over in half the time, right? We've been kicking this can, so to speak, down the road for how long? And in that same period, from 2005 to 2015, what was the national debt in 2005? It was probably $8 trillion. I'm just guessing. I don't even have to go look. I'm pretty sure it's around there. Might have even been 7, right? It's now touching 19. It's almost at 19 trillion. They just added 639 billion in the month of November alone, bringing it to 18.8 something trillion. We're touching 19. By the time Obama leaves office, it will have doubled during his term. One president, 2 terms, one president, 2 terms, the debt will have doubled. And again, it doesn't matter if John McCain was the president or somehow George Bush had a 3rd term. It would not have changed anything. Just in case anyone's out there, see that damn Bush. No, stop that nonsense. All the presidents are conductors in a train. The train's tracks were laid before the train even got to be put on the tracks. The destination's already set. Who gets on the train and gets off the train every 4 years? Some of them get 2 terms and get to stay on the train for 8 years, and I'm the conductor. You're driving down a train down predetermined tracks. The hell does that mean? I'm the big shot. I'm the president. I'm the conductor. Who's going to jump out at the last second while the rest of us on board that train being tugged by that locomotive fall off a cliff? Kind of like the cliff you're looking at right there from 2005 to 2015. I am JSnip4. Take care.